Yes, welcome once again. Moyo here, Moyo, and welcome to Build with Moyo. I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun as you're watching me too. I'm having fun. I told you about Rich MD Foods in my last video. Now let me tell you some of the few things I learned. Wow. It's been a journey. Now I can smile. During this process, I couldn't smile in those days. Oh wow! I remember I even did an interview one time with Emmanuel Agazi. Yes, I did an interview with him. He was doing a master's research in the UK. I can't remember his uni, and he interviewed me and he asked me about business. I remember I cried after speaking. I started the video happy, but by the time I began to remember some things I passed through, tears were just pouring out. I was like, man, I've gone through a lot. You won't know until you just begin to talk. It was tough. But let me just tell you about let me just pick plantain chips. So when we started in 2017, I told you I built brands. I don't joke with branding. I don't joke with packaging, branding. And so when we began plantain chips, I contacted Zizan. Zizan was the same person. And so we worked on the branding for the plantain chips. But before then, in Nigeria, plantain chips used to just be sold in transparent nylons, just nylons, and maybe someone would just put their name on the paper, their brand on the paper, and they just staple it and sell. That was what people knew. The highest will be you get a bottle, not a bottle, a plastic big bowl or like a bottle. I don't know how to call it, but plastic, and then seal it, and then you say plantain chips. You just put a sticker and say plantain chips. But now I love branding, I love design. If I'm going to go into this market, I can't do that. So I personally believe, if nobody else will ever call me that, I personally believe I am, or my team and I are one of the pioneers of branding plantain chips. I personally believe. If they never mention my name, I'm fine. But I have to say it in this video. And so we designed our plantain chips pack and everything. It was fantastic. But you see, design is subjective. When you design, it's also good to hear feedback from customers. So when you are a pioneer also, you face challenges. And what are the challenges we faced? When we did this design and we took it to the market, we had already started producing the plantain chips. That's why it's always good to work with the consumers or the customers before you go to the market. But well, you can always learn on the job too. When we went into the market, people began to say they can't see the plantain chips. We had some opening, of course. We didn't cover everything. We left a nice design by the corner so you can see what's inside. We left, so by the corners you could see the plantain chips. But because Nigerians were used to just plain nylon and you can see everything inside, they kept saying they can't see the plantain chips. That's what they kept saying. But some people would just be like, oh, lovely branding. They can still see the inside. And some people loved it. But some people also said they couldn't see it. And so with this, we tried to go into supermarkets, different shops. Getting into supermarkets, getting into shops in Nigeria. That's another story for another day. I don't even know if I want to speak about it. It's a story for another day. But you realize there's no structure in many organizations in Nigeria. There's no flow. If you say you want to get in, what's the process? It's story. But we got into many. We thank God. And that's how we pushed the business. But this was hard because it was being sold in Nigeria as at that time for 50 naira. It was being sold for 50 naira. But we were coming into the market knowing this is 50 naira. But we were selling at about 65 grams or so. I'm not so sure. But we were saying, okay, we'll give it to you for 70. Can you sell it for 100? That's a good margin we've given you. Or we'll give you for 60, sell for 100. Or something like that, I believe. But as at that time, many of them were afraid to sell plantain chips for 100 naira. Now, I don't know how much plantain chips is in Nigeria. 100 naira is now small, can you imagine? But then, they were so scared and they didn't want to take the risk. Another thing was what I realized in Nigeria. Nigeria is unique. I decided to try something else. You know, plantain chips are, in those who know Nigeria and those who live in Nigeria, they sell plantain chips on the road, in traffic. Some people just carry it on their shoulders, and they just sell plantain chips. So I said, I want to know the people who sell plantain chips. I want to meet them, and I want them to sell my product. So very early in the morning, I found out, I did some research, and I found out where those guys actually sleep. I found out where they stay. Man, proper research. These things are hard to find. I found out everything. I went deep. Let me just tell you how I went deep. I don't want to speak too much about it. So I knew where everyone was in this Lagos. As I said, in this Lagos, I knew where they used to stay. So myself and one other street guy, Mr. Lukman, wherever he is, we'll wake up very early in the morning. We'll go right to them and say, see, we want you to sell our product. We'll give you for this amount. We want you to sell for this amount. This is good money for you. Meanwhile, that time I'm talking about, something was now raining. Yeah, so I think this was about 2018 now. 2018. So about this time, there was also one other competitor that was doing very well. Very well. They were also selling plantain chips. They had different colors, red, white. I'm not so sure. But those who know that there was a brand of plantain chips that was reigning in 2018, I believe. So I went to meet them, and I realized those guys that sell on the street have bosses and they can't take action on their own. And it made me know it's like a cabal. It's like someone brought them to Lagos. They can't leave, no matter what. Why am I saying this? The things or the plantain chips they were selling, when we had some discussion, they were selling for 90. They were selling for 100 naira, because as at that time now, people began to sell plantain chips for 100 naira. Meanwhile, we tried it in supermarkets and all. They were so scared, but this brand was able to break it. And so I went to meet them. How, let's just partner. I realized that they were giving them these plantain chips for 90 naira, and these guys will sell for 100. So their profit was 10 naira, as little as 10 naira. And I was like, wow, 10 naira. And I said, come, I'll give you for 70. You make 30. I was even ready to drop it. But the more I spoke to them and all, the more I realized they will go meet their boss, because they couldn't break free. They couldn't take action. They'll go meet their boss and tell the boss, this is what is happening. And the boss will be like, nah, no, these are my people. Don't talk to my people. That kind of thing. It was a proper cabal. Proper one. I don't even know whether I can call it something deeper than cabal. They couldn't leave. Anyway, I was able to still get some other people that controlled their own group of people. So I realized in different areas, everyone was controlling them. Or how will I explain? In every area, they had a controller. And I was able to find someone that was nice. And she was not so controlling. Hers was not like a cabal. Hers is like, she'll give you. If your good moves, congrats. If it doesn't move, She was a wholesaler. And so we gave her, and she would give her people there, and people would buy. But one thing to note, we were doing unripe plantain chips. Ripe plantain chips is sweeter. The ripe one is sweeter. But ours was also very nice. I don't really like unripe plantain chips, being sincere. But it was actually really nice. We were doing it nicely. So people used to buy us, and it was really nice, but we had to stop. It was not profitable. It was stressful. When you say unripe plantain chips, as the plantain is unripe, you have to cut it. I don't know if you've ever tried to cut unripe plantain, and do you know how many we used to cut? Oh wow! And you know how we used to go and source for unripe plantain, and how it has to get to the factory instantly or immediately, so that it doesn't get ripe. Man, we did things. It's nice to just sit back and remember all these things we did. Cheers to my parents. They were supportive, amazing. We did a lot of work. People might not know us. Our names might not go down in history. But sincerely, we worked hard. And God knows we did our very best. Thank you for watching. Who knows? I'll tell you another thing in another video. Bye.